Morning, morning. Today is Monday, May 15th, 2023. So we're gonna sit on the normal meditation that we do, and then we'll do some questions, and then at the end we'll do another session with Tonglen, which Victoria will take us through. So Tonglen can be translated as giving and receiving. Giving and receiving, which is like how we work with trying to connect to other people's suffering, trying to connect our compassion to other people's suffering, which is a really good practice that a lot of you have done and worked on here and other places and heard about, but it's and it's also something that we suggest often to people having particular difficulties with certain people in their lives. But let's start with setting our motivation, making aspirations by saying the four immeasurables prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Okay, so we've done some reviews lately, so today we're going to skip the review, go right to meditation, but we will do a more specific instructional breakdown of the Tonglen practice towards the end of class today. So let's start by sitting. Okay. Actually, we should do the Tonglen first, and then we'll do questions because you may have questions about the practice. I'm going to read a quote. What did you say? Hmm?
Go ahead.
This is from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. There is a reality beyond our senses. It is beyond our thoughts. It is beyond language. When we are speedy and anxious, having a mind focused in either the past or future, we miss it. When we are relaxed and in the present moment, it is easier to access. When we are aware, we are getting closer. With the recognition that our perceptions and thoughts are merely fabricated projections of our mind, it dawns on us that what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and think are false, for perceptions and thoughts are language bound. Reality tied to language is only a gross approximation. Being aware focuses our mind in the present moment. Recognizing that language bound reality is mistaken allows us to drop deeper, getting closer to non-conceptual reality. This non-conceptual reality is true, it is wise, and is filled with unconditional, unlimited love and compassion. Emaho. So let's work on Tonglen and, for a bit, and then after that we'll go to questions. So you can ask questions about Tonglen if you have it or anything else, and we'll take it from there.
So the difference between Buddhas and sentient beings is, of course, what is realization? And there's realization that liberates. A Buddha is a state of awareness blossomed to its fullest natural capacity, something that lives and is active within the ground of the nature of mind. The difference between Buddhas is complete realization of truth and liberation and dissolution of the boundaries of ignorance. And ignorance is another word for ego grasping. Ego grasping is what leads us to duality. And therefore, just as in the quote of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the mind of duality sees everything as self and other, so subject and object. That is the basis of ignorance. That is what precludes us from seeing the ultimate ground of all things and our own ultimate ground. All the Buddha Dharma, all the teachings, 84,000 teachings, and all the teachers and all the teachings only strive to show us the nature of our own mind, our own Buddhahood. And we may think that my internal, and all sentient beings, and I don't mean just human sentient beings, but all sentient beings, all beings endowed with the mind, the little worms below our feet, the birds above in the sky, sentient beings that are visible and invisible to us. We're all endowed with the same nature. That nature, another word for that nature is Buddhahood. So it may seem to us that our Buddha is very, very far, but actually, no, the Buddha is very, very close. And one of the, when Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, our historical Buddha who attained enlightenment, when he, after the event of enlightenment, when he decided to teach us, he was teaching us on bodhicitta. What is bodhicitta in an ultimate sense? Bodhicitta, or the way that the Buddhas act. So the way that the Buddha's nature flows out towards sentient beings is compassion. Bodhicitta, mind of awakening, is also heart of awakening, because heart mind is one thing. There's no, it's not an analytical mind, so it's not separated from, from our emotions, perceptions, etc., etc. There are, the aggregates are pacified, because a thought is a compounded phenomenon. It's the aggregates, the five aggregates of our sensations, perceptions, our mental aggregate, etc., etc. A thought is something that is a bubble where we take the awareness of infinity, and we kind of squeeze it into one tiny little bubble. But it's not just a bubble about how we perceive something out there. It's also a bubble that contains all of our afflictions and the ignorance of duality. So bodhicitta is the remedy which overcomes the the very basis of ignorance and duality. It's something that it naturally extinguishes the dualistic grasping to the self and things arising as opposite of us as a subject, our awareness as a subject, and what we perceive or who we perceive as an object. So the difference, the marked difference between Buddhas and sentient beings is the Buddhas act for the benefit of all sentient beings, all sentient beings. There are no exceptions. We're not acting like Buddhas or Bodhisattvas when we're acting only with love toward the people who flatter us or benefit us or who pay for us, beings, not just people, and have a reverse attitude towards the people who may not say melodious things to us, who may not pay for us, may actually take away from us, etc., etc. No, Buddhas act for the benefit of all sentient beings. That's what ultimate bodhicitta is. The mind of a Buddha imbued with is ultimate bodhicitta. It's not like something that is in the mind of the Buddha. That is the quality of the Buddha. And that attitude, we may not feel it completely and understand it. Our awareness may not have ripened to it completely, but in its seed form, that's what Buddha nature is. The capacity to exceed and transcend dualistic grasping to the self, which therefore creates this basis of perceiving everything as other, and then treating that other with the compound nature of the afflictive emotion within this dualistic structure. So in Tonglen, we start immediately, we mimic or we play out our complete Buddha nature. We play out that which Buddha taught us, how to dissolve this state of ignorance, how to dissolve afflictive mind, how to dissolve and go past appearances. And in 37 Bodhisattva practices, the very pith instruction on what the view is, what the nature of the mind is, that is, appearances are just the nature of one's own mind. Therefore, knowing this, not to engage the mind in dualistic object-subject grasping is the Bodhisattva's way of being. We've gone through the 37 Bodhisattva practices. So when we start with Tonglen, when we know that that is our nature and we need to act on it, when we start with Tonglen, just like when we start with the aspiration of setting our mind with the four intentions, the four immeasurables, we're starting at the place where we are saying, I am going to enact my Buddha nature. I am going to enact my ripened nature of mind characteristics. I am going to act from that foundation rather than from my ignorance, from my ordinary conceptual mind, which always just encapsulates, and not just encapsulates like a set of projections and choices within a linguistic and a conceptual structure, but also together with that, every concept also bears all of our predispositions and all of our afflictive tendencies inside a thought. A thought is a very complex kind of a thing. Inside a thought, inside a perception, inside a concept, all of that is hidden. And so when we act out of bodhicitta, when we act out of the mind of four immeasurables, we do it with our intentionality, but we're setting our mind on Buddhahood. And so now we're working for the benefit of other sentient beings, at the same time working on our own benefit in order to dissolve the dualistic grasping and the ignorance which always keeps us in these bubbles, feeling suffering, causing suffering, endless wheel of samsara, turning the endless wheel of samsara. So in Tonglen, we enact our Buddha nature. We take the pain of others and we receive it into the center of our heart. We visualize like a very bright, radiant light. That is our Buddha nature. We think of it as our complete, full, ripened Buddha nature. We take the difficulty of others and we send the light back to them, purifying them and turning them into complete Buddhas. And it's very, very important to do it with difficult people in one's life. You can start with just kind of a general uh, exercise of doing Tonglen, of acting for the benefit of others. Think of somebody that is less fortunate than you, that lives in your neighborhood, who's homeless, who doesn't have food, doesn't have shelter, doesn't have regular amenities that we all take for granted. You may start with that, but make sure it's not about pity. And then eventually try to transition to difficult people in your mind. But now you're not, when you bring up mentally a difficult person in front of you, don't think of them. He did this, she did this, he said this, he said that. No. Take away all of that conceptuality and all of that dualism and all of that ignorance, and completely discard it. And now just think, may you have happiness. May you be free from suffering. May you, may you have causes for happiness. May you always be in happiness that is free from sorrow. So like this, and while you're thinking of that, using that mind of enlightenment as your foundation, what you're doing physically is you're taking their difficulty, whatever has upset you about that person, you're taking that difficulty, you're inhaling it, and what you exhale is the white light that turns them into complete Buddhahood and the causes of happiness. Of course, Buddhahood is the cause of happiness. It's the benefiting of all sentient beings with complete absence of self-grasping and ignorance is happiness. So let's try to do that. Let's do it at 3 levels. Let's bring up somebody that we just passed by on the street. Let's then next, in the next level, bring up someone who may be just difficult at work or difficult at home or difficult in your environment, a difficult neighbor, and then slowly bring up someone with whom you really need to change your relationship. Because remember, we are a part of sustaining the difficulty, this samsaric wheel. For as long as we have people in our life we call enemies, we are the sustainers of the wheel of samsara. We are the cause of suffering. It may be together with them, but if we don't take out our part, if we don't take the poison out of the water, that water will never be drinkable. So let's meditate on that.
I just ask one question to you that's very common when people first hear about Tonglen. Sometimes people wonder or apprehensive or afraid of taking that negative energy or suffering or anything into themselves, that feel that it might adversely affect them. Can you speak to that?
It's hard to speak about it very, very briefly. I'll try to speak about it very, very briefly. So think about our body as a container, and our awareness is the content, what's inside that. We care so much for our vessel, but the vessel is of course just the 5 elements. The 5 elements came together to produce what is now our form, this current body, constantly changing, and the 5 elements will dissolve in this particular, for this duration that we're meant to physically be here. At the time, our consciousness will simply move to another form, to another rebirth. It's very important to care for our vessel, but we should only care for it because it's a support for practice. We shouldn't care for it because we treasure it into us and identify with our body. So if our vessel is being used for practice, we are caring for it. There is no reason to think that the awareness that is indestructible has never really arisen and has never perished, unlike the vessel. Can never be hurt by anything, can never be mutated by anything. Our awareness is Buddha nature, and that's what we're using right now in the Tonglen practice. In the Tonglen practice, we come right up to this border and say, I'm acting out of my Buddha nature. And that Buddha nature is indestructible. There is no reason to think that anything can ever destroy it. Uh, you know, and the vessel, when it's being in use in order to help others, can only benefit from it too. These kinds of the light of positivity, the light of enacting our Buddha nature can only be something that actually eliminates faults and cures things, including it also affects our vessel when we are using practice and accessing the deepest portion of our nature. So without being hung up on the vessel and identifying ourselves as this physical body, which will dissipate. One day we were a baby, next day we will be this old person about ready to die. So we should never really, the vessel is only important insofar as it supports our practice. So let's not be afraid and let's do practice.
Thanks.
So bring up a person in front of you and in your mind's eye in front of you whom you want to benefit. And then do at least 3 rounds of inhaling the darkness from them that keeps them in that suffering condition. And and it comes into your heart center, which is a luminous, bright Buddha nature. And whatever hits, the darkness hits your heart center with that luminosity inside it, immediately transforms into light. And then you exhale that back to that person. You can also visualize the things you wish them to have. But most importantly, you want to give them, you want to awaken the fire of their Buddha nature in them. From your heart center, you can think that the light is permeating all of your body and shining through all your pores. And when you exhale and send that white light of your bodhicitta, of your Buddha nature, of your awareness to the other person, you see them also light up with the same light and become purified, with obstacles falling and obscurations being removed. You can think of many people at once. You can think of people in hospitals, or people who are burying their loved ones right in this instance while we're sitting here, or people in prisons, or people starving, people homeless, people in war, and send the light to all of them. Then bring up a person with whom you have a kind of a negative relationship and you would like to change it, without going into conceptual bubbles and narratives and saying they have to change. You change, and then you transform them and the nature of your relationship. Take out the negativities from them and send them love. And say, may you have causes of happiness. May you be free from suffering. And bring up a difficult person in your life. It doesn't matter if they're alive or not. And say to them, I really want the bond between us to be that of love and light. And this is a good time to ask for forgiveness and breach of wrongdoings, of wrong thinking, of wrong view, of harshness, of being closed-minded, of being close-hearted. Look at that person and know that the light between you and that person is the same. It's just the nature of awareness and love. Bodhicitta. Not love as an emotion, but what the Buddhas have. Take it upon yourself to repair the darkness that exists between the two of you. Feel like that connection is restored, and there is nothing but a bridge of light between the two of you now. Feel like your light on the out breath removed all the obstacles and removed all the darkness and purified yourself and the other with whom you have this. And then make a vow to never act outside of this mind of light, and always end the practice with doing Tonglen for all sentient beings for 3 breaths at least. All our mother sentient beings, limitless as space, may they have happiness, be free from suffering. Feel like the light is pouring out of you in all directions, through all your pores, from the heart center, which is heart mind. That's where your awareness is. And at the end of the Tonglen practice, you take a bodhisattva vow to always act in this way, to always hold all beings in your heart, and to act out of nothing but benefit to all your mother sentient beings, to all our mother sentient beings, limitless as space.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. We can take some questions. I know we always encourage you to, as this is a really meditation instruction today at Tonglen, in some ways a form of meditation, I guess, and practice instruction, but at a Dharma talk. We're not Dharma teachers. Those of you who are interested in the things we talk about, Buddhism or Dharma, that we encourage you to really seek out the masters, people connected to an authentic lineage. Most of you know we practice within Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and there are many living masters, incredible teachers, incredible women and men who are teaching now. We're connected to authentic lineages. You can find a lot of them on the Solidago Productions website. and some of their books. Some that are maybe not on the website that Victoria and I have been watching, both on YouTube and in person recently. Tai Situ Rinpoche has a lot of teachings on YouTube. Taisitu Rinpoche. Really, really remarkable teacher. And Tsoknyi Rinpoche. Tsoknyi Rinpoche. And Kalu Rinpoche is a young Lama, the reincarnate of the first Kalu Rinpoche, who we really think will be very important. Is very important, but especially for younger generations, because he's in his 30s, and we pray he'll be with us for a long time. And he's really a profound teacher, as are the other two that I mentioned. So.
And may I also add that Garchen Rinpoche currently had a 3-day practice, which I think is wrapping up today. If you go to Garchen Institute Live on YouTube, there is a session, I believe that was day before yesterday, when Rinpoche gave Bodhisattva vows. Now, you don't have to be a Buddhist to be compassionate, to be awakened. You can take the Bodhisattva vow with Rinpoche. You can do it for 24 hours or for until your life expires in this vessel, and for all your future lives. It's up to you what kind of a level of aspiration you are willing to take. But I think it's extremely beneficial, especially for those of us who have taken refuge, to renew our Bodhisattva vows as frequently as we can, especially with a living Buddha like Garchen Rinpoche. And that's on YouTube currently. Together with that, Rinpoche gives a teaching on the nature of mind, so that we understand when we take the Bodhisattva vow, we are vowing to live out of us our most deepest, profound nature, toward which all life is tending anyway, whether we know it or not. So it's just becoming aware about what there is, the nature of phenomena, the nature of mind.
And there's books on the website too, on Solidago Productions. And the first name I mentioned was Tai Situ Rinpoche, Taisitu, 2 words. But we don't have any questions, so maybe we will end early today. And we usually do this on Sundays. But Monday, it always depends on, logistics. So sometimes we change. Okay. If there's no further questions, we will dedicate the merit from today's class for the benefit of all beings. We say this dedication of merit prayer. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to our producer, Nick Solidago,
Thank you.
for his generosity. Someone writes, this is their first time ever meditating. Is it okay to hear? It's definitely okay to hear. We didn't give you any instruction today because we don't do the review of all the instructions week after week, because most of the people have done it before. So I don't want to, kind of belabor it every week going over the same thing. But if you look at the first on YouTube, meditation with Michael Imperioli YouTube, look at the first class from 2023. It's in mid-January or something. And that has a really detailed review of the meditation technique, the posture, the breathing, the visualization, and the basic technique. So you can learn that on your own. It's very simple, really easy to learn, not easy to to master or whatever. But you can do that on your own, and then we usually do a review at least once a month. And if not, next time you come, you'll be able to do that. I'm having trouble finding the vows on Garchen Buddhist Institute.
These were the teachings from yesterday, day before yesterday, and 2 days ago. So maybe you can Google. It was the White Tara practice.
White Tara from this past
from
weekend.
this past weekend. So if you look at that, you will find it.
Yeah.
It's in one of the sessions. You have to go through the sessions and find the session where Rinpoche gives vows. He gives the regular vow, the vow to become a Buddhist, but he also gives the Bodhisattva vow for us really to vow to act out of our enlightened nature and with an enlightened intent, out of a mind of enlightenment. That's what really a Bodhisattva is. It's someone who acts out of bodhicitta. That is the energy of that person's life and being.
I'm early on my journey. I've started reading Steve Hagen's book, Buddhism Plain and Simple. It's quite good. Would you recommend other starter books? I always recommend going to the lamas themselves, the lamas that are the teachers from the authentic lineages. I think those are the best books, really. There's one really good one that's on the list that we recommend called The Power of Mind by Khencho Lodro Taye Rinpoche. It's on the Solidago Productions website. That's a really good beginner book.
And Trungpa Rinpoche is also a very good resource with many, many, many books. Trungpa Rinpoche.
The practice is called Tonglen, Tonglen. You can do that whenever you like. You can do it walking down the street and you see someone. You can do it during your daily practice. It's something that doesn't have to be like in a formal shrine setting. Neither does meditation.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like meditation. You can add it to your life whenever.
And it's very important to do it right on the spot when you're dealing with a difficult person. Just remember the practice, and on your breath, you do this exactly this. You will see the results on your own. It's very, very potent, very transformative.
Okay. Mantra. Do you have any suggestions? Mantras are syllables that are, sacred syllables that have vibrations that kind of bring us to a meditative or state or support meditation. Sometimes the teachers say mantras protect the mind. Usually your mantra is given to you by a teacher, often through certain ritual kind of ceremonial things. If you want to practice a mantra, the Chenrezig, the Avalokiteshvara mantra, what's that?
Om Mani Padme Hum, the six syllable mantra, the 6-syllable mantra, and the Tara mantra you can do without formal initiation and formal practice of deity practice. Those are the two mantras that are okay to recite without in conjunction with the deity. Usually a mantra is connected to a deity. So when you're doing a deity practice, you're using the deity mantra. Those are the syllables and the seed syllables connected to that particular practice. But the 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, you can use without the full practice.
Yeah.
And Om Tare Tu Tare, Ture Soha. Look it up, Tara mantra and Chenrezig mantra.
Someone mentions it. A friend passed away. They found a copy of Be Here Now by Ram Dass, and it spoke to me.
Good.
Any reflection on Ram Dass? I think Ram Dass had really good teacher. Well, no, his teacher was Bhagwan Rajni. No, not Rajneesh. It was Neem Karoli Baba was his teacher. So he comes from a Hindu tradition, which I'm not very familiar with. So I think he had a really interesting journey, and it was one of those Americans that went to the East in the 60s, kind of on a more of a psychedelic kind of, trip, and came back with a real interest and some knowledge of Eastern spirituality through his connection with his teacher. I don't know much about his teachings per se. he did have several dialogues and taught at Naropa University that Trungpa Rinpoche started. And they would teach on alternate days there. But if things speak to you, they speak to you. The tricky thing with finding books that speak to you is often when the book is over, we're back left to our own devices again. Well, we're always back left to our own devices, but often before I got into Buddhism, I read lots of different spiritual teachings, different paths, different approaches, not Buddhism, other approaches, and a lot of them spoke to me. But when I'd be done with the book, I had no practice. I had no teacher. I had no way to start to incorporate these things into life, start to bring it into daily practice. That's, so if you can find, I don't know if he has centers or people teaching, because he passed away, people teaching in his methods or whatever. But so that's why I like Tibetan Buddhism particularly, because there is that lineage that connects the teacher to student, to teacher to student, going back many, 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 many years. And that there are teachers now teaching in these traditions that you can have and that you can work with, that you can benefit from, that you can have a daily practice through their guidance and things like that. And I think that's very important. Garchen Institute, scroll down to monthly meditation, Tara retreat, Bodhisattva vows, refuge vows, also posted on YouTube. Thank you, Giselle. So if you're interested in that. Someone's asking me about indigenous traditional practices in my work. In my healing, no. I mean, I don't know much about that, so I don't incorporate. I mean, indigenous, maybe you could call Tibetans indigenous peoples, because that's their land. That was kind of taken away from them, pretty much. Not kind of, but pretty much was. So there's a connection there, but I stick pretty much to Tibetan Buddhism. I don't really have other things that I pick and choose from. There's a danger of becoming like a spiritual shopper, and you're constantly looking for this other thing and another thing and another thing, right? There's that great saying, if you're digging for water in the desert, what's more effective, digging 1,000 holes 1 feet deep or one hole 1,000 feet deep? I guess it's more effective digging one hole 1,000 feet deep. Continue finding an authentic path, authentic lineage, authentic teachers, a living tradition that's still accessible, and really, diving in. I think that's most effective, at least for me. Okay. Thank you very much for coming today. We will see you next week, hopefully, and all the best.